to Biztech's Technology Show. Today we feature Daniel Ahmed. He's the co-founder and COO of Fasset. Fasset is the leading digital asset management platform for emerging markets. Now, to tell us more about Fasset, welcome to the show, Daniel.
No, thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for having us. We're excited to talk to you about Fasset. So just very briefly, what we're trying to do with our company is provide digital assets in a very regulated, safe, and simple way to the masses in emerging markets. Our thesis is very simple, that digital assets are actually a need in the East versus a want in the West. As many of your listeners and viewers will know, a lot of the promise of crypto and the hype around crypto hasn't matched up to its kind of potential. And that's primarily because it's very speculative driven, right? And our goal with Fasset is how can we provide real asset-based tokens, premier digital assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum that we believe have long-term potential to enable people to build wealth in the long term. That's kind of our goal.
Now, you have a very interesting background. You worked for the government in UAE as well. Tell us about that and then your entrepreneurial journey towards starting up this exchange.
Absolutely. Thank you for putting that out. So me and my co-founder, we were both working at the UAE Prime Minister's office, advising the PMO on emerging technologies. This is back in 2017, 18, and 19. The focus at that time, very interestingly, as you'll know, being based out of Singapore, the UAE is also very kind of ahead when it comes to thinking about technologies and how they can impact the country and government services. So we actually worked for a minister responsible for artificial intelligence in the UAE and blockchain as well. So his mandate covered that, and we supported in building out that office, working with a lot of different countries in the emerging markets on how we can create touch points between our nations and share best practices when it comes to these kind of technologies, whether it's around research, talent development, development of the capital markets around that. One of the major elements that we were working on was around regulation around particular blockchain specific companies, and that led us to really delve deeply into the crypto ecosystem. Once again back in 2016 and 17. At that point, regulation around the world was very nascent, and only a few markets were kind of pro crypto. Obviously, what we've seen over the last couple of years is every single year you have some countries becoming kind of anti-crypto, some becoming positive, but the trend is generally going towards positiveness. Right now, the US is kind of taking a battering at it, but ultimately it's for the benefit of the customer, right? Once again, we believe, and our long-term belief is that crypto has potential, and therefore, the entrepreneurial journey was very simple. We became fascinated with what crypto can mean for emerging markets, not just the standard digital assets that you see on any exchange, but also bringing real assets on chain, enabling people who maybe currently are locked off from entering any type of investment class to be able to buy on-chain real asset tokens, as well as the traditional cryptocurrencies, and build a basket that is very balanced, right? And that's kind of the goal. And the other, the beauty of crypto, as you'll know, and your listeners will know, is that it's highly divisible, it's highly secure, if done in a proper way, right? Centralized exchanges have their faults, but there are a lot of promises to crypto that we became very fascinated with, and that's why we set up what we have. And just to kind of finish on that point, our moat, or our kind of special USP, I would say, Fasset's USP is that we like to work very closely with regulatory bodies around the emerging market kind of context, work with stakeholders like the central banks and ministries of finance to give them comfort that crypto is actually good for your country. And our backgrounds as kind of civil servants in the UAE PMO helps us deal with those kind of stakeholders.
I think that's very interesting because, again, as you correctly alluded to, your background not only enables you to deal with them better, they probably also look at you in a very different light, probably a little bit more positive light than the average crypto entrepreneur, who they probably think in the back of their mind, yeah, he's in it for a quick buck. You probably come in from a very different perspective when they look at you. But really, one of the key promises of crypto, and of course that's also a Fasset offer or goal, is really around financial freedom for emerging markets and financial inclusion, isn't it? Walk us through your lens. How you
Sure.
see this panning out?
Yeah, so look, I mean, the way we see it is that the initial kind of goal with Facet, or let's say the way I think about it is three layers, right? Layer one for me or for our team is how can we enable these emerging market populations to build wealth, right? So that's coming back to the bringing real assets on chain like stocks, bonds, other type of assets that the traditional kind of emerging market person may not have access to. I'm talking about sub-Saharan Africa. I'm talking about the likes of Bangladesh, Pakistan, Indonesia, where you have hundreds of millions of people who are underbanked, right? So I'm not
Right.
necessarily only talking about the unbanked. Unbanked obviously have a space that we are hoping to help with as well, but the underbanked may have access to a bank account, but may not have access to the same amount of investment opportunities that maybe you and I have, right? Based where we're based, basically. So layer one is how can we enable people to build that wealth? Layer two then is enable people to use what they're building to actually increase their wealth. So that might be savings products, right? So there's the concept of staking in cryptocurrency. So you can take some of your assets, stake them, create more yield, more profit, and kind of increase the amount of assets that you have. There's lending and borrowing products that we're working on as well. So the second layer would be find ways to make your assets productive. And then the final thing I would say, and it's kind of associated with our name as well. So as you can see on our name, we've used the term Facet. The reason is because everything we do, we want to do it with an asset kind of backed approach. But really, it's a play on the word multifaceted, right? Because another beauty of crypto is that it's a very multifaceted asset class. You can use cryptocurrency not just as a savings tool, but also to remit, also to use as payments. So cryptocurrency has this beauty that it can be used for multiple kind of different use cases. So that's kind of the third layer and kind of the ultimate goal of the super app, which is enabling these emerging market populations to be able to use Facet to do their day-to-day payments, to actually get their payroll in a wallet that is effectively a bank account that they can then save, lend, borrow, access different asset classes. So ultimately, the vision becomes a kind of Web3 crypto bank that enables all these different types of use cases. Because the final thing I'd say, I'm sure you have questions, is that cryptocurrency as it exists today and exchanges as they exist today cannot survive as a business model, right? Because it's very cyclical in nature. Margins are very, very low. The business itself has to enable customers or give people touch points that they would want to come back even during a bear market. So we're in the longest bear market ever in cryptocurrency today. Many people are not touching the cryptocurrency apps, but if you could use that app to pay, if you could use that to remit money back home, that becomes something that you would want to come back to. And that's kind of, it's both a business objective and a business model, but also we believe touching and solving some real pain points for people, which is ultimately what you want to do as an entrepreneur.
Okay, so we've talked about these in terms of the layers of involvement. Now I want you, Daniel, for the benefit of our audience, to make it really simple for for them to get their heads around what you do.
Yeah.
Walk us through some use cases around some perhaps customer avatars.
Sure. So I'll give you one. It's funny you mentioned this because we were talking about this internally with the team yesterday, talking about some of our user personas and how and who we would want to target. I'll give you one very simple example. When you look at the demographics, when you look at the statistics in emerging markets, you notice that majority of women in emerging markets don't own assets themselves, right? Interestingly enough, one of the largest kind of cultural aspects of asset ownership in this region in particular is that there's a lot of gold ownership. When you get married, you get gold, in places like Pakistan, Bangladesh, at least in the subcontinent like India, but also I believe in East Asia as well. We are firm believers that gold-backed tokens that are 100% fully verifiable and backed are much more safer because there's no issue of theft. They are much more fungible. You can do things with them. And they are much more liquid. You can sell them very quickly and that kind of thing. So one kind of campaign and one avatar that you mentioned is that we want to enable women to buy gold-backed tokens, right? And that's kind of one aspect and one campaign that we will be running very shortly to educate people about the virtues of that, and then also enable people and give access to that. So one of the use cases or one of the kind of partnerships that we have, another kind of differentiator between us and other exchanges, is that we like to work with enterprise clients to really distribute our assets in mass. So just as an example, in Indonesia, we've recently partnered with the second largest telco there called Ooredoo Indosat Hutchinson. which is the second largest telco in Indonesia. They have 110 million customers, of which about 30 million use their mobile application on a daily basis. So we're currently, deep in the integration phase with them to offer the ability for their customers to buy gold-backed tokens, Bitcoin, and Ethereum directly from this mobile application, right? And that's kind of one angle and one persona that we're pushing for people to be able to do. Another major one that I'll talk you through and then I'll pause is around payments, right? So being able to use your cryptocurrency, as I mentioned, as a means to actually get a physical and virtual debit card to make e-commerce payments, to go, POS and actually go to a Starbucks and buy your coffee using, your USDC or your Bitcoin. We want to enable that very kind of seamlessly. So we're working with MasterCard in Indonesia at the moment to actually offer that as well. But those are two particular use cases as an example that I can tell you about.
Now, you spoke about Jakarta. You recently secured your crypto asset trading license in Indonesia. You also now, Jakarta is now one of your headquarters besides Dubai.
Yeah.
Why Indonesia, and is Indonesia the starting point for a broader look at the Southeast Asian region?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we've been big believers in Southeast Asia for many years. Actually, our first foray was in Malaysia. We actually received licenses out of the offshore regulator in Malaysia called Labuan. Yeah, so the Labuan Financial Services Authority has issued Fasset licenses back in 2021 to conduct cryptocurrency-based activities. So we've been big believers. We then looked at Indonesia as really a market that has the ability to be one of the top 5 markets globally for cryptocurrency. And I think that's why we've chosen that as a strategic spot for Indonesia, but also for this broader Southeast Asia region. Obviously, Southeast Asia is very interesting when it comes to crypto adoption. When you look at the likes of the regulators in Singapore, like MAS, who've done a great job. Indonesia currently, by some estimates, has anywhere between 15 to up to 40 million people that have used cryptocurrency. 15 million people have officially, according to the regulator locally. Interestingly, 15 million out of a 270 million population is still, quite small.
But 15 million is a lot of people.
But then 15 million is a lot of people as well. Exactly. So, there's a lot of growth, clearly. There's a lot of interest. One of the incredible things that happened over the last couple of weeks is we went live with our wait list globally to get people interested in the platform. We received over 1.2 million signups on the platform, of which half of that came from Indonesia alone. So, there's a lot of appetite for what we're trying to do in a place like Indonesia. And that's primarily why we've chosen that as our dual headquarter. We've got a great team there, over 20 people. We've got good investors and good kind of stakeholders there as well. So yeah, it is definitely a launchpad for Southeast Asia, but definitely Indonesia itself has the ability to become, a huge player in the crypto space.
So Daniel, then looking ahead for the next 12 to 24 months, what's on the pipeline for Fasset?
Yeah, good question. Look, I think we're going to continue to develop new innovative products that can help people, right? We get a lot of pressure from stakeholders, from team members saying, let's put 100 new tokens on the platform, right? Let's enable all these different type of tokens to people. But that deviates from our mission, right? Enabling a meme coin, a dog coin, whatever it is that could potentially give somebody, 100x return. The reality is that other people will lose 100x, and we just don't want to be involved in that. And there's enough players out there that are servicing that. For us, digital assets and the promise of digital assets has not been achieved. Our goal is to help achieve that. And over the next 24 months, we will see the development of our mobile application and our proposition to the point where it really acts like a mobile, like a bank on your phone. But all done on blockchain, all done on digital assets, enabling a new alternative kind of rail and ability for people to own assets, use assets, develop assets, become wealthier, not in a speculative way, but in a long-term kind of capacity. More markets, right? So our goal is to be, pan-emerging market. So we're looking at, the African context very closely. Actually, in our roadmap in the near future, probably in the next 6 months or so, we will be opening up the gateway for 14 African markets with some partners locally that can enable local African currency into USD, so that we can very easily enable more crypto services. But we want to take over the emerging market kind of context. the big players, Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, all the other ones, they're all primarily focused on the West. No exchange has currently, we believe, successfully overtaken this emerging market context, and that's kind of our playing field and where we think we can add value to our customers as well.
Daniel, it's been a fascinating conversation. I've really learned a lot.
Thank you.
But before we leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, it's a good question as well. Look, I think you're going to have a lot of people on your show that may be skeptical of crypto right now, right? And that usually happens when there's a bear market, when there's fraudulent activities.
But you know what happened, and I want to stop you here, Daniel.
Yeah.
I think 3 years ago, there were senior people who were really, really skeptical about crypto.
Yeah.
But over the years, you have seen, and particularly with Bitcoin and Ethereum,
Indeed.
I think there is a comfort level that there wasn't there even 24 months ago.
It's reached there. You're right. With the BlackRock ETF and all these other ETFs that are coming about, there's clear institutional demand, right? There's no doubt. Absolutely. I agree with you. But then it's interesting. Bitcoin and Ethereum you mentioned, but then people will be like, okay, but crypto aside from that is useless. It's pointless. It's speculative. It's, whatever. I want to get access to an ETF so that I can have a little bit of exposure to this potential upside, but I don't really believe in it. What I want to tell you and your kind of viewers is that crypto has real potential. And obviously I will be very biased to say that, but real potential for people that lack financial services. And I think that is something that I urge people who are listening to this to support in any way, whether it's use the app or our app or other apps that are trying to do this, fund them, create your own companies that can really use crypto in the way that it should be used to help kind of people. That would be the message I would leave you with.
Daniel, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Ryan. Take care.
Now, we've been speaking to Daniel Ahmed. He's the co-founder and COO of Fasset. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to Biztech's Technology Show. Catch this conversation and much more on Biztech, www.biztech.asia, as well as our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks for tuning in.